Hi everyone, it's Rebecca here, and for those of you that don't know me, then I am the co-author of a book called Recovery from Within, a mother and daughter's journey through anorexia. It's a book that I co-wrote with my daughter, and my daughter's called Bea, and we've done quite a bit of talking about our journey, obviously in our book, but also on podcasts and videos that we've recorded. But I just thought it was probably about time that I came on and recorded a video for all of those of you who are caring for somebody that you love who's struggling with an eating disorder right now. Or to be honest, struggling with any addiction right now. And I thought that this might be a good vehicle to do that, to share that, especially if you've not come across us before. And I know that in the past I've always gone to YouTube to look for stuff when I've got stuck. It's a great place for asking questions and getting a response in some form or another from somebody else's experience. So I thought that might be really helpful. So I guess it's probably best to go back to the beginning so that you get a bit of my story, so I can share that with you. And maybe you'll see some similarities, maybe you won't, but maybe there will be something in this that gives you a little hope, because frankly that was the thing that I didn't have at the time when my daughter was ill. So if we go back, so gosh, where are we? January 2008. 1st of January 2008 was the day that I knew that my daughter was ill, that she had an eating disorder. I'd known for some time, as I'm sure we've all experienced that kind of knowing, but too frightened to go there, because that's exactly what it was like for me. I'd had my doubts, I'd had my worries, I'd done some research, started looking around, but there was absolutely no way that I could face that my daughter had an eating disorder. And it took a member of the family to actually say it out loud to me. Does Bea have anorexia? And you know, it's funny even now, which is how many years on? Oh, tons of years on. Over a decade later, I can still feel it in my stomach. That day was the day that everything changed in our lives. It was a day that I guess I felt I unraveled. There was part of me that was unraveling, and there was part of me that knew that I needed to get a grip. I feel really emotional now just sharing that. So I know that feeling of how the hell can this be happening to my daughter and to us as a family, and the fear of the unknown, and what happens if we can't help, if I can't help, if we don't get the help that we need. So we were very fortunate back then. I think things are quite different these days. A decade ago, 11 years ago, we were seen really quickly and we got help really quickly, which was amazing. And it's really interesting, isn't it, in hindsight, that all the help is there for the person that's struggling, and naturally and obviously, but I felt so completely isolated and on my own. I had so many thoughts about this illness and how I could support my daughter, how I could support the rest of the family. And that wasn't, at the time I was married, and I have 2 sons as well. So it was, how do I support all of these people as well as the wider family? Because it was like a grenade that had gone off in our family. And I don't think once I thought about me and the support that I needed and the help that I needed, because there was part of me that was shameful, I guess. Because what was this saying about me as a parent? What did this mean about me? What had I done wrong? And of course, these are valid questions that we're asking ourselves, but actually they're not the truth. Because at the end of the day, it's not anything that we've done wrong. And who knows what the cause of eating disorders are. They're as varied as there are those that struggle. So I guess I went through the motions in the early days of being there supporting, being the bad cop, and also having to be the good cop as well. To be loving my daughter unconditionally, which we do naturally, don't we, as parents? It's what we do. We love without condition. But this felt a huge ask, because it meant that I had to love her whatever she decided to do. And that was extremely painful, to be doing that as well. To love without any condition from me. Not, I'll love you if you just eat this sandwich. I'll love you if you actually don't go to the gym again today. This is, I love you whatever. And that can feel really, really, really tough to do. Really tough to do. But we do it anyway. So we had months and months and months and months of this, of visits to see every therapist and psychiatrist and dietitian. And it started off as a family thing. We'd go together. But the stress was too great for everybody. I had a son who was coming up for 18, and I had another son who was just coming up for 8. And it was a huge stress on the whole family. And it was, in the end, it was being me. It was being me going to all of these appointments. And it's funny now in hindsight thinking about it. And I share this. So the work I do is as a coach. So I'm supporting people who are stuck somehow in life, whatever their age, whatever their gender, wherever they are in their life. And one of the things I always say to people is the importance of remembering what we're told when we get on a plane. When they run through all the security and the safety things to take account of. And one of the things they say is when there's a drop in cabin pressure, gas masks, oxygen masks will drop from the ceiling, and you must put your own on before you help anybody else with theirs. And that's even if they're a child. And I love this as a metaphor for life, because how many of us are really doing that? How many of us are putting on our own oxygen mask before we're helping somebody else with theirs? And the thing was, this is what I wasn't doing. This is what I really needed to do, and I'm sure you need to do. But we feel so overwhelmed with what's right in front of us, which is a loved one who's really struggling, that we forget about ourselves. And that is one of the things that I learnt through the journey and want to share with you now, is the importance. This isn't it's a nice to thing. This is a vital thing to do, and that is to make sure that you are looking after yourself and that you are seeing beyond the illness that can feel completely swamping and overwhelming, is to see beyond that and to through that to your own well-being and how important that is. So do whatever you need to do, and it's going to look different for everybody, and it'll look different from day to day and moment to moment. But find some way to make sure that each day you are putting on your own oxygen mask. And I think it took me a couple of years to realise that, if I'm absolutely honest with you. And maybe because I was training to be a coach at the time, I was learning that. And I was learning to share with other people as well and not keep it kind of hidden here, but actually to share what I was experiencing and going through. And that was helpful as well. But choose wisely. Choose the people that aren't going to, yeah, but what you need to do is, because that can feel like something else that we're taking on as well, is choose wisely those that will hold a space for you, those that can listen without judging, without fixing. Because you'll know when you're able to connect back to a still place, when your batteries are recharged or your tank is refueled, however you want to word it, when that happens, I knew what to do. I knew what needed to be done next. But the time that I was literally running on empty, where my head was so full of noise and fear and anxiety, there was absolutely no way I could be of any support to my daughter. It's when I was refueled, when I was calm, when I was settled, that I was much more able to see what needed to be done next, what might be helpful to try next. So maybe that's another point for you to consider, is in that choosing your team that you surround yourself with, and choose them wisely. And it's really interesting because I know at some point things began to shift. I don't know what happened, but things began to shift. And we got back to a stage of weight restoration. B was going off to university and she was in recovery. But if I'm absolutely honest, anorexia was still here, taking pride of place in certainly my head and in B's life as well. And now when I think about it, there was part of me that was complicit, too frightened to face it, too frightened to say, yeah, but what about this? What about that? Because I know it took up a lot of her headspace, and I know it took up a lot of mine as well. But, and this is a really important point, I think, is to know that we're all doing the best we can, given what looks real to us, what's going on for us. So that I can sit here and judge myself for having maybe been complicit in that, too frightened to just cook something that the rest of the family were going to eat, knowing that it was probably one of her blacklist foods. But I was doing the best I could because there was still a fear. I was still frightened that what if it triggered again? What if it started up again? What if she slid again back into full-blown anorexia rather than just bumbling along in the weight restored place? And I think this whole thing about doing the best we can is really important to look at, because it's not only we are doing the best we can, and some days that's going to be better than other days. Some days our best is going to be shouting and yelling, and some days it's going to be a much more deeper understanding and wise head-on, if you like. But also, what if we considered that everybody else is doing the best that they can? What if we really saw that our loved one is doing the best that they can? What would be different for you in that if you saw that? Because they are doing the best they can. Because if they could, they would be doing differently. And I think that's a really important thing to consider. And also, what about all those around us? What about those loved ones that are maybe said to you because it comes from their place of fear, is just make her eat. Can't she just eat? What if they're doing the best they can as well? And that kind of comes from their place of fear, or their place of not understanding what's really going on. What if that's the best that they can do as well? And I know that the moment that I knew that, everything was easier to manage. I could let go a bit, I guess. I could let go a bit and know that we're all doing the best we can. And I think what I see in that is the ability to have a bit more compassion for myself and for all of those that are involved in our lives, I guess, is to have a compassion that we're all doing the best we can. So another thing I think that in hindsight has been really helpful to see, and that is that knowing somewhere deep down that recovery is possible, because there were times when I felt completely hopeless and I didn't even know whether that was possible. I didn't know whether this was going to be our life from now on, and we were just going to have to live with that sense of hopelessness, I guess. I was going to say despair, but I'm not sure I ever felt despair. But if you do, then I get that as well. But it's almost like, what if you can just hold, it's almost like a little candle alight, a little flame. Think of it like the pilot light on your boiler. Have a little somewhere parked away, it could be right in the recesses of your mind, that recovery is possible. And I think the times, again, it's like allowing our minds to settle and become quiet. When I allowed that to flood into me, it felt so different. I felt full of hope. And surely that's the one thing that we all are looking for in this, is hope. So what if I just tell you recovery is possible? You might not feel it right now, but recovery is possible. I've seen it. I've seen it in my daughter, who will tell you right now that she is recovered in the past tense, that she's no longer in recovery, that she's recovered. And that's something that we'll talk about more. There will be plenty of other videos about that, but also our book shares our stories. So I'll put a link in the comments below about where you can get hold of our book, because I think that might be a good first stop. So recovery is possible. Just know that. And I think the other thing that I think feels really important to share, now this might feel completely insane right now, but one of the things I'd love you to do is to look beyond the eating disorder, because the eating disorder isn't who they are. Now, you may know that. They may be completely absorbed in the eating disorder and it's like, no, this is me. But if you know, and I'm sure you know that they are your daughter, your son, your loved one, your partner, your best friend, whoever it is that you're caring for, they are so much more than the eating disorder that is being presented to you daily. They are so much more than that. And the thing that has helped me, and I know in the work that I do, sharing what I've seen about recovery with those that are struggling and their carers, if you like, their loved ones, is to see beyond the eating disorder and see to a place where they are healthy. And that's not sometime in the future. This is the health that's sitting behind the eating disorder. Now, I don't know whether that makes any sense to you at all, but just don't try and make sense of it. Just see what you feel in the words that I say. Because beneath and behind this eating disorder, they are sitting in a place of health. It's this place deep inside us that knows that they're okay beyond this. So just think about it in this way. When you're doing something together, when you're sitting watching a film, when you're out walking the dog, when you're having a conversation, I don't know, just sitting being at some point, or you hear them laughing with their friends, or they're absolutely kind of absorbed in doing something. It might be for a split second. I get that. I'm not talking about hours. It might be for a split second. You get a sense that all's well, all's okay. It might be, and I remember so clearly going out walking the dog with Bea when she was ill. And we'd have a lovely time. We'd be holding hands or arms linked in, or picking blackberries, or just running around throwing a ball for the dog, laughing and joking and being normal. And that, you see, can you see that in that moment, there is no eating disorder. There is just them in their health. Now, this might just make no sense to you at all, and I totally get that. But just think about that for a moment, and maybe start to see where they're in their health rather than in the eating disorder. And just bit by bit, because they are so much more than the eating disorder. And when I could see that in Bea, that's when, again, I was able to not be so caught up and fraught and worried, but just actually to enjoy that moment. So I think that's probably long enough. And I really hope that this has been helpful for you, that it's maybe answered some questions, or maybe it's asking some more questions of you. And I would love to continue this conversation. Leave comments. I'm gonna leave links where you can get in touch with me and with Bea, follow us on social media and all of that stuff. But get in touch. Drop me a line, a message, a question, because I know that this is possible. I know that recovery is possible, and I know that you can see something different in this. So that's it for now. I am sending you all my love, and I really look forward to hearing from you soon, and I will be back recording another video very soon. So that's it. Bye for now.